Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go! Background: I'm a 35-year-old father of 2 boys. I had PTSD due to time overseas and had the physical scars to match the mental scars. I have an incredible wife that knows me and knows what situations I should avoid. My children are amazing, but this story revolves around my youngest son and my service dog. Jay, my youngest son, has autism, and we share a special bond because some things that set him off also put my teeth on edge. Spike, my English bulldog, he's my service dog. He's well-trained, lazy, judgmental, and overall uninterested in anything he can't eat. He's also very in tune to Jay and my emotions and will provide a distraction when we get overwhelmed. Basically, he's like, "Oh, you're stressed? Here, scratch my butt. You'll feel better and I'll get attention." It's a win-win. The story: my family recently moved to Texas. Because we now live very close to an amusement park, we got memberships. Shout out to the park for being amazing when it comes to special needs. This particular park in Arlington, Texas has a special program for autistic people. They have rooms set aside to chill at if you're overstimulated so you can relax, go back out, get overstimulated again, and round you go. With Jay, we also don't have to wait in lines. This is a huge thing, and because of this story, the park has a pass that lets you skip most of the lines, and they charge an arm and leg for this. However, with that pass, you still end up in a line of the hundreds of people that also have that pass. Jay gets no lines at all. We get a special pass and we go in through the exit. The worker signs the pass and we go on a ride. Jay has a favorite ride, the log ride. There have been days that we would ride the log ride over and over, then eat. We also have the food pass, which we pay for, then go back to the log ride. On this day, T, my oldest, and Jay wanted to go on a log ride. So we made our way to the exit and left wife and Spike in the shade because someone had to stay with him, and bulldogs plus rides do not mix. As we were going in the exit, a woman started screaming at us. I have absolutely no hearing on my right side thanks to the high-pressure wave, so I didn't consider it worth turning my head to listen. Now, because we ride this ride almost exclusively, the workers on this ride know us by name and sight. Jay even talks to them, which is rare. We go in, show the pass, sit, and ride. This time though, Karen, the woman that was screaming at us as we were walking in through the out, made her way to where the speedy pass ends at the ride where a red shirt will check her pass and let her go on her way. She didn't even want to ride. He just wanted to yell about us going in through the exits and how we are abusing the system. Now, anyone that looks at Jay can see he's in a world all of his own. I wouldn't be surprised if he's literally reading the future or talking to aliens. He's awesome. The Richard tries to calm her down. Jay was making his excited sounds and waiting for the lock to stop so he could get in. We get in, and as we float away, we still hear Karen screaming. The ride ends and we exit. We figured we would never see Karen again, but obviously, at some point it didn't go that way. Karen appeared like a dark brother after making the sacrifice. Elder Scrolls reference. Hooting and screaming. She's screaming that just because Jay is an R word doesn't mean we get extra rights. The screaming causes Jay to let out his super screech. Now, anyone that knows autism knows that autistic kids have superpowers. In Jay's case, it's supersonic, ear-shattering, high-pitched screech that makes your ears swim and makes it feel like things in your head are moving that shouldn't. This whole time, Spike was laying on the ground, in the froggy position as bulldogs do, just looking at Karen like she's a rabid dog but not worth getting up for. As we are being screamed at, I see 2 officers approaching from behind Karen. I smile, and my smile must have broken Karen because she hauls off and kicks Spike. This flips my switch because now my family is literally under attack and I start to react. Before I could make contact, Karen is already in the air being held, carried, half dragged away while being cuffed. Now in front of me is a well-dressed and a pissed-off looking officer. He tells us he heard a screech and started heading to it because they thought a ride broke or something had happened. I take the time to unflip that switch and examine Spike. He's limping and crying. I feel his hips and feel that his hip is dislocated. I jokingly ask the officer to walk away and let me get some. He of course has no humor to this, but also can tell I had a career. He asked what happened and we all explain what happened from A to Z. He asks if Spike is a service dog and I say yes. He smiles. I'm not in a smile mood, but it catches me off guard. He explains that in Texas to intentionally injure a service dog is a felony. By this time, park security arrived and issued a trespass order to Karen. The officers ask if I want to press charges. I look at Spike and look back and yes, is what I say. Karen and her husband start to freak out as Karen is loaded onto a golf cart. We hop onto the cart too and leave to go to the vet. The vet treated Spike and all is well. We went back the next day with Spike in a stroller. No one batted an eye and everyone loved the bulldog in a stroller. I let people pet him, he's not a hoot and the park is an amazing place. I've been contacted by the investigating officer and have given depositions. I may have to testify, but I look forward to sitting on a bench with Spike on my lap. So I'm fairly new to the work world. Only been working about 5.5 months at the time of writing. I work at a car wash, so the confusion comes from my uniform top, which happens to share partial coloration to red. After work I walk home, it takes me on average 20 to 30 minutes to get home, and I usually stop at a grocery store to get drinks and stuff like that. One day I forgot to change out of my uniform. I was still wearing the shirt and apron I'm required to wear. The uniform of the grocery store was a pun-up of a few different colors, so a distant difference. I go to the drink aisle and start to think about what I would get when I feel this tug on my sleeve. I look to see the typical Karen, only a little shorter, only coming up to my chest. I'm like 5'10". I stand back thinking that I'm taking up space in the aisle, but that seemingly wasn't the problem. The problem ensued as follows.
Excuse me, you're out of soda, and I was wondering if you could go in the back to get me some.
Oh, I'm sorry, I don't work here. I continue looking at drinks.
Of course you do. Now go get me some.
No, I don't. I point at the car wash logo on my shirt, and she completely ignores it.
Give me your name because I'm going to complain to your manager.
Manager of the car wash was on vacation in Hawaii. I won't give you my name, you don't need my name. I'm fully facing her and whisper, I don't work here.
You do need to give me your name.
No, I don't. Now please, I just want to…
Give me your name now.
Karen is banshee screaming now when an actual employee comes down the aisle. He says, I'm hearing a commotion, what seems to be the problem here? I go to open my mouth when Karen starts ranting about how I was being rude, lazy, and should be fired because a customer was always right. The employee tries to explain to Karen that I did in fact not work there, but she was just not having it.
I demand to speak with your manager about this employee.
Please don't yell. There are other customers and yourself and him.
He's not a customer. He's an effing worker. Now get me the effing manager or I will have both of your jobs.
The employee gets the manager and Karen goes off and tells even bigger lies about the actual employee and I. The manager tries to explain that I don't work here, and Karen grabs my collar with both hands and throws me towards the manager, knocking him over. He tells the actual employee to call the cops, and Karen then freaks out and bolts for the door. But she falls over because running in heels is a bad idea. He was arrested for assault, and I got out of there with my drink for free. So, yeah, I had an interesting day. I, 38 female, was in a group chat with the rest of our family awaiting the arrival of my brother, 34 male, and sister-in-law's 29 female baby boy. When my brother sent a message saying his wife was dilated enough to start pushing, and the doctors and nurses were there getting everything set up. My mother sent back a text saying, FaceTime. I was horrified that they would do that because my sister-in-law is an extremely quiet and private person. I couldn't imagine any scenario in which she was okay with that. So I shot saying, absolutely not, unless sister-in-law agreed to this. This is a completely inappropriate request. My mom came back with, she did. And I just said, whatever. My dad then jumped my arse in a text message saying that I shouldn't talk to my mother that way, that she and my brother had already discussed doing this and that it wouldn't be during the actual delivery of the baby, but afterwards. I told him I didn't care what brother and mom had discussed. as they weren't the one in labor, and if mom wasn't intending to FaceTime during the actual delivery, then why did she demand to FaceTime as soon as brother said it was time to start pushing? And why did she say sister-in-law had already agreed in response to my message? Honestly, even if sister-in-law did agree to this, I still don't think it was an appropriate thing for my mom to ask. If it didn't come as an unprompted offer directly from sister-in-law, it's incredibly inappropriate for anyone else to ask. My brother and mother should have respected my sister-in-law enough to grant her privacy for such a momentous occasion. Am I the jerk for snapping at my mom and defending my sister-in-law? And now with some comments on a post. Someone saying I see the other comments asking if sister-in-law agreed or not. And I too feel like that's the pivotal question. But if that's what sister-in-law agreed to with her mother-in-law, I feel like her brother would have just FaceTimed your mother to tell her that it was time rather than needing to send a text and get a response. Not the jerk. Even if sister-in-law did agree to FaceTime, it's not a problem for you to defend her. People in labor are very vulnerable, so even if your efforts weren't needed, it's still a nice gesture. Like when some other woman tells you that there is a creep checking you out and you look over to see your boyfriend. She might have been wrong, but I love that she was looking out for me. Another commenter adds, not the jerk. Even if sister-in-law had previously agreed to FaceTime, nothing wrong with you standing up for her in a vulnerable moment. Especially as from the conversation it sounded like FaceTiming at the birth was a spontaneous decision. Your response may have been a bit intense, but in the heat of the moment, understandable. A third commenter goes with, not the jerk. Quote, that she and my brother had already discussed doing this. And where was sister-in-law in that discussion? If your mom meant to FaceTime after, then she could have clarified that to you all in a group chat. There was no need for your dad to get all prissy. During the summer of 2020, I worked customer service for an online retailer. It's the worst job I've ever worked. While most people were polite, kind, and understanding, I had to deal with many people who were often justifiably upset about a problem with their order. But even then, most people would be sure to say their anger was not directed towards me. Faking sympathy for these people was hard enough. But then there will be people berating me personally as if I had something to do with whatever problem they were complaining about. One day the system we used to track people's order was down. I wouldn't be able to cancel orders, check when the shipping date was, change the shipping address, nothing. The supervisor told us to tell the customers to call back in an hour, at which point the system would hopefully be back up. Again, most people were understanding that there was literally nothing I could do to modify their orders and said they would call back later. This one lady calls me and is upset about something and wants me to cancel her order. I tell her I apologize for the inconvenience, but I can't at the moment, and that she should call back in an hour. She was not happy with the response. She starts going off about how that's unacceptable, she doesn't have time later, take down her information and do it later once the system is back up. This is horrible customer service and so on. I constantly have calls coming in, so I can't be dealing with her problem at the same time as speaking to another customer. And more importantly, my shift was going to be finished in 20 minutes, and I sure as hell wasn't waiting around for the system to be back up and doing overtime to cancel this lady's order, especially with her rude, entitled attitude. Eventually, she decides that she has had enough of me and asks to speak with my supervisor. Summer of 2020 is peak COVID, so I was working from home. I explained the situation and say that I can't just pass a phone to my supervisor, but what I can do is escalate the issue by putting in a ticket and a supervisor will call them back in 24 to 48 hours. Of course, this is not good enough for her. She's yelling at me at this point, going on and on about how awful this customer service is, and she's not accepting that there is nothing I can do at the moment. She decides she doesn't want to speak to me anymore and screeches at me to just transfer me to anyone else. I don't care, I don't want to speak to you anymore. I say okay, just give me a moment. As I'm thinking in my head, you did say anyone. I transferred her to the Spanish customer service line. So I transferred her to the Spanish customer service line.
And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.